Did the stress level go down with the new shop?
No,
It didn't?
it's different. It's a different stress, but it's definitely still extremely stressful.
But I mean, like, from building it
Hold
and
on,
running a shop.
Hold on. He's in the middle of building a shop. Okay, he's in the middle of building a shop. All of his energy, all of his focus, he's like, it'll be fine as soon as it's done.
Once you get in,
As soon as I get in,
telling yourself that.
it'll
Keep telling
be
yourself.
fine.
Yep.
So if you tell him otherwise, you will crush the man.
My hopes and dreams.
He'll be okay.
Go.
I feel like he needs to hear the truth, and he can handle it.
Right. No, I mean, I don't expect the stress to go away. Right. Like I'm not foolish. I know the stress is not going to completely go away. I just know that the stress of running one shop and paying for that big of a shop with this little shop.
Yeah.
Plus trying to fit all the cars and like work on the new shop while I'm working in the old shop, while I'm doing the podcast. Anything I take off my plate at this point is going to take stress off. And that's the biggest chunk of my plate. That's the biggest slice of the pie right now, stress wise.
Yes.
So when the building part of it is over, I can get on to things that I know how to fix. You know what I'm saying? Like there's things in the shop that
I do.
And maybe that's my personality. The reason I feel that way.
I felt the same way. I would say the same thing. I think you just I think you just have to remember that life still happens. Things are still going to, and even beyond, like, I thought that too. I remember like the third day in the shop, I'm like, all right, here we go. Like, just like ready to rock and roll. And then my dad fell off the hoist. And his wife doesn't drive. And I had to take him places, and he broke 6 ribs and 2 vertebrae.
I saw that. Is he okay?
You know, he's okay. He's healing well. But it's just like seriously. Because so I'm not trying to burst your bubble at all.
No,
and
you're not.
You stay in that safe space. And it is different. Right. It is different. You're totally right. Yeah. Having something here and something else over here and trying to that's complete. Yeah. You just got to get past that. At least it's all in one place. And yes.
Right. Well, and I mean, that's my thing. Like, I'm used to dealing with the stress of the shop. I'm used to pushing really hard to get things to work in the shop. I think what stressed me out the most about this project is that in the shop, I'm used to things that I can control. Mm-hmm. And building the shop, even though I'm the GC on it, building the shop, there are things I have zero control over.
Right.
And that's very overwhelming for me compared to once we get into the shop, I'm back into my wheelhouse of things that I can nudge and push and get to go my way a little bit. I'm more used to dealing with that than I am things that are just completely out of my control and I'm having to wait on somebody else. And it's things that, you know, like if I call a part vendor and I can't get the part, or if a technician's taking too long on a job and I need to move it, guess what happens? I call a different part vendor. I move it to a different technician. I get the job done.
Right.
And so right now I'm stuck in this situation. It's like the HVAC guy. For almost 4 weeks now, it's been, oh yeah, I'll be there. Oh yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there Monday. I'll be there Monday morning. Okay, well, it's actually going to be lunchtime. Okay, I'll be by 5. Okay, I'll be there tomorrow. Right? And that's stuff I can't do.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, I just want to get to where it's the stuff I can do something about.
You can do something,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, like the unknowns, I'm good with that. Cool. I can handle that. It's just like the stress of trying to do both at the same time has been.
Yeah.
And I've got this figured out. I am going to tools. Okay. So I'm leaving for tools. And then I'm going to AAPEX for a week.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that, we will have a CO and they can move in and they can do whatever they want while I'm gone. I'll be in Las Vegas. It'll be warm. It'll be snowing here. It'll be warm in Vegas. You know what? It will be just fine.
It'll be fine.
I'm just going to act like it's not happening. See?
So, yes. Yep. You can be in your bubble and it's fine. And yes. I will say that for me too. So Dan, just after we finished and before we had our grand opening, Dan went to Canada for 2 weeks.
He got it figured out. Wasn't that how this started? Didn't you like go get a loan while he was like off hunting somewhere? Or was it in the middle of the loan?
Through, right? Like, yeah, he was gone when it happened. Right. So Tara has like, yes, I went to AutoWare's Tech Expo, but that's no vacation. Like, it's networking, it's work. And I would very strongly recommend, and it sounds like you're already kind of gearing up for that, but I need a break. I'm burnt out, past burnt out. Right. So, which is probably also why things feel so and seem so difficult, like a lot of work. It is a lot of work. We've had people here today fixing things. The windows were leaking last week on our ADAS equipment, and the garage door opener stopped working. So things happen. And it's okay. It's okay. It's going to be great.
See, but you got to remember, I'm coming from a place that I didn't even have any of that. And it didn't work anyway if I did. Oh. So it didn't, that's normal. Okay. Yeah, it leaks on it. Listen, grab some trash bags, put over top of it. It's fine. I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me a bit. Push it over. My God, it's on wheels for a reason. That's so when the ceiling drips, it doesn't get onto it.
I'm going to write myself a note to check in on you a few months after, and I'll see how you're doing.
Yeah. I'm going to be bald. I'm going to look like David. I hope I don't look like David. There's lots of things.
You say it like it's a bad thing.
So you say there's lots of things I don't mind looking like, but David is not. Poor David. How many years have you gone to AAPEX? You're going again this year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How many years have you been?
It's not always in a row, so I think I've probably been there 5 times probably already. Mm-hmm.
And last year, you won a really prestigious award. What was it again?
Female Shop Owner of the Year.
Well, but I mean, you already had that accolade, right? We already gave that to you. We just didn't give you an award. You know that, right?
Oh, pshaw. I don't have any quarters in my pocket, Lucas.
So, you're in this new wonderful facility. You're heading to AAPEX. Mm-hmm. What's different about AAPEX than the other trade shows that you go to?
I think the magnitude of it, that is just so huge. There's a lot of, when we go to AutoWares, those are the people that we know, the products that we sell. This is there's so much more than that and beyond. And the training is, I think, a notch above. The amount of people that you get to be around and meet is, I'm not a notch above, but more vast.
Right. Yeah. And there's lots of parties. There's a lot of.
That was the next thing I was going to say is parties.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. As long as the police don't show up and ask you to leave, that was interesting. And
security.
Why? Yeah, security. And why? Just as the food was coming in, it was hey, here's all this beautiful food, and you get none of it.
Well, hey, listen, I had this all. I walked out and I saw the law there. I'm used to that. Seeing David's facial expression when the law showed up, he's clearly never been arrested before because, his eyes got really big and he started shaking. It was really terrible. What's up with
that? Is that a joke? Yeah.
No, I really think AAPEX is.
It was security. It's fine. It was fine.
Oh, no, the cops were behind security.
Were they?
I guess you didn't see that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that was the real deal popo there. I don't know if you know this, but Las Vegas PD wears yellow polos. Yeah. So
how do you know that?
Because you see them all the time.
I don't see them all the time.
Never mind. I will share a video with you about how I figured that out. It is not me in the video for everyone asking. It wasn't me, but it was amusing. And it was a feller from the South, so that I guess you could, yeah. But anyway, I'm with you though. I think the size of the show is a big part of it, and I think that being able to see all of these people, right? It's these regional shows we go to, and a lot of us go to Vision, a lot of us go to ASTE, but when you get to a show like AAPEX, everyone that is truly involved in their industry is there, right? It is unbelievable, the people that you get to talk to, the people that you've been friends with for years on social media or chatting in, a website like diag.net. You all of a sudden are getting the chance to sit down and talk with these people, the coaches, right? Almost every coach in the industry is there. You get to talk to them. And it is just massive. Now, last year, you had kind of already made some plans for what was going into the new shop and how you were setting things up. Did the AAPEX trade show play a difference in how you set the shop up? Did it affect the process of building a shop at all?
Maybe not the building as much as the equipment going inside. We were definitely not sure about our ADAS. There was new technology coming, and even though we were supposed to be in the shop 2 years before, it would have been different. But the game was changing, and we wanted to make sure we're making the right decisions. So being able to be there and hands-on made a huge, and talk to people that were already using it.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been a big one for me too, is being able to talk to these guys and they say, hey, listen, you might check your market, but here's what I'm experiencing in my market. I don't think I would buy this, so I would buy that. Hey, we found this instead of that. We were charging this instead of that, or we were charging this way instead of that way.
Yeah.
And that makes a really big difference because, for so long, I think that the automotive industry has flown kind of blind, right? 20 years ago, in a lot of ways, that would have been you in your shop and you would have just been fixing cars. And so having the opportunity to network and get out and talk to some people who are doing the exact same thing you want to do or you are doing and hear their perspective of how they did it, right? And it's neat because as you're having these conversations, you're getting ideas from them and you say, you know what? That might work here. I could try this or I could try that. And the light bulb goes off and then you're saying things and you're seeing the light bulb go off for them too, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And so all of a sudden, two people from across the country are improving each other's shops.
Yeah.
And I just think it's neat that 20 years ago, that would have been much more difficult than it is today. And I contribute a lot of that to shows like AAPEX for sure.
I think so too, being in person and
yeah,
next to people instead of who knows where. Yeah.
You taking any classes this year?
I think I'm going to do one, maybe two. Maybe an ADAS one, and the other one is the marketing with
who's
Kim
marketing?
Kim and Brian.
We just recorded with them right before we started.
Really?
And so, yeah. And so, man, Brian put some killer information out there. Like even the video about the class is like super informative. So you'll have to go back and catch that for sure. Because I mean, man, those are my people. And I've been working with them for over a year now.
Okay.
And I am telling you, they know how to market and they fit that. We have big personalities here. And so they market those personalities as opposed to conventional marketing. And it's really neat to see that work. So that is super awesome.
Yeah. David, do you use them?
Huh? I don't use anybody. I kind of do my own thing, but, what are you hoping to get out of ADAS? Or the ADAS classes?
Just to, understand the different types. My biggest thing is charging. Like, I don't really feel like our industry has a basis for charging. I feel like you can charge anywhere between $74 and $735 to do the same thing. And I'm like, well, I want to be the $735 person. Like, why? I don't know. What's it based off of?
Right.
I haven't seen anybody give me a formula yet for either what the machine costs times whatever, or like these hourly numbers. I hear some people doing tiers. Like it's just either a tier or like level 1, 2, or 3, and that's how they're charging. And I just, that's the part that confuses me, because if it changes in the future, then how do we know how to adapt to it?
Well, you bring that up. It's something that has been brought up on the podcast many times, and it's something we talk about a lot. And so David's always said, like, hey, how do I compete with the dealership down the street who the service advisor knows dang good and well if he goes and tells that client that an alignment and a calibration is going to be $500, that client's going to blow up because they're not accustomed to that. So that advisor just goes and says, hey, everything looks great, $79.95 alignment. Here you go. Right? And so how do we overcome that? What, David, share your thoughts on that, because that's something you've been going through.
The industry doesn't know. Like, there's no formula because nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. But I will say, like, we were talking to Ben Johnson and his podcast. He's with Mitchell One. He's a product manager with Mitchell One. His podcast comes out next week. And what he was talking about was, at the very least, the most important thing you need to keep in mind is that your notes and the way you invoice your ADAS calibrations have to be incredibly detailed. And so I think the biggest mistake everybody's making is that they are encompassing 17 different functions under ADAS calibrations. And yeah, that's an ADAS, but it's like saying, we've repaired your car. Well, what did you repair? It's like, oh, okay, well, we replaced spark plugs, we did timing belt, we did a valve adjustment, we did valve cover gaskets, we did an oil change. It's like, okay, everything, one of those functions had to be itemized. Every single repair procedure has to be listed out with parts and all that stuff. So the exact same mentality needs to be taken towards ADAS. So when you do a blind spot calibration, on the mirrors, that's all that should be on there.
Right.
We did a blind spot calibration on the mirrors and then did an alignment. That's it. But it has to be detailed like that. It can't just say ADAS calibration performed and then that's it. Right. If you're doing the front camera, it just needs to say that you did the front camera. Or if you did the 360 camera, it just needs to say you did the 360 camera. And I think, and then however long it takes. And yeah, you could average that out. And that's the approach that we're taking. We're going to average it out and see, for the most part, the calibrations, unless there's a problem, there's a component that's broken or there's a communication problem or whatever, the calibrations don't take very long if you've got a good machine. And you've got multiple scan tools. Yeah. The calibrations don't take very long. But you do have to factor in, like, we have a dedicated space that we lease just to do ADAS calibration, so that has to be factored in, and however many we need to do to meet that expense and then average that out. But I think we need to get away from like level 1, level 2. We need to get away from just like an alignment and just saying it's an alignment. It's like, okay, well, that's not going to work with ADAS calibrations. It's going to have to be, we did front camera on this particular vehicle. Here's everything we did. We're taking pictures every step of the way to document that we did. Here's the instructions. Here's us doing it. But and then each calibration has a different charge. I know that there are people that are doing calibrations that are not doing it that way. They're just charging one set fee, and they're doing 3 or 4 calibrations all at once, and I think that's insane. And the thing that Ben Johnson pointed out specifically was that you are taking a massive risk liability wise if you don't list out exactly what it is that you're doing, because if it just says ADAS calibration and you did the blind spot and didn't do that front camera because all you were trying to do was an alignment, and you had alignment with the ADAS calibration on there, and there was it was $350 versus $79.95 for your front alignment or whatever, and there's a problem or there's an accident, they're going to come right back to you and say, hey, this says ADAS calibration. It's like, okay, but the malfunction happened in the front camera. We didn't calibrate the front camera. It's like, okay, but you didn't outline that on there. So I don't know. I'm going to be pushing hard for shops to take a individual approach to the calibrations. Each calibration is its own function, its own line item. Yeah. We're only going to do what's required. If the OE information does not say that I need to do a 360 camera calibration after I do a front camera calibration, I'm not touching that 360. We took the front bumper off. It says to recalibrate the front camera. That's what I did. It's going to say that I recalibrated the front camera, and that's it. So if there's a problem with the 360 and they slam into somebody or hit a kid or whatever, it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't touch that 360 camera. I just did the front camera, and it's working properly. Yeah. And then that's it. Because I think if we take any other approach to it, we're going to undervalue the service. We're going to take on massive risk. We're not going to be charging enough. And we're already dealing with like mobile guys that are, blocking the sun to get the camera to calibrate, just all sorts of shenanigans.
Yeah, there was a video this weekend that came out, and it was a guy who runs a calibration facility, and he said, listen, if you have a mobile guy coming out to do a calibration for you, I promise it's not right. He said, because you're not supposed to have wind, you're not supposed to have sunlight, you're like all of these variables.
Level.
Exactly. He's like, there's no way that you're getting this right mobily. He said, you can't have somebody come out and do it. And I know that stinks for a lot of people because a lot of people are trying to build a business around that. But, and those are things, I even think
that's sort of the problem, though. Like you have legit mobile guys that are going out and they are doing only what can be done mobile. They're doing the dynamic calibrations. They're setting up the scan tool, and they're driving it for 35 minutes or whatever it is to get it to calibrate. They're bringing the car back. It's calibrated. It's correct. Right. But they're doing that work. But because everybody just calls it all ADAS, They have no idea that, I'm sorry, like the front camera on that Subaru cannot be done without it being in an enclosed building with no sunlight, no windows, and it has to be done with these targets, and the targets can't be, they have to be OE or exact OE or whatever. They can't be stretched out OE. Like there's so many variables there, but because everybody just calls it one thing.
Yeah, it's like saying it's OBD2. Like, hey, OBD2 to your car. Like,
right. Like, okay, what is that?
And you still see shops doing that, like diagnostics. Like that's all it says on the invoice. Like we did diagnostics $100. Like what did you do exactly? And that's what's most fearful for me. If we are still, I have a shop like 3 minutes away from my shop, just to the north of me. And we get their parts all the time. People, the parts stores don't know, and they see the address and they don't realize this is a shop up the street. And we get there, and I've had a few of their customers come to me saying, hey, they worked on my car. They seem to not be able to figure out what's wrong with it. Can you look at it? You look at their invoice, and it just says diagnostics, X amount of dollars. It's way too low. And you have no idea what they did. You don't know what tests they ran. You don't know what system they were looking for. You don't know the codes. You don't know their like diagnostic strategy, because it's not mapped out. It's not laid out. There's nothing there to go off of. If we take that same approach, and the shops are still doing it with OBD2, if they're taking that same approach to ADAS, we are screwed. We're all screwed.
Did you increase your insurance at all? Your liability insurance?
I already have ridiculously high liability insurance.
Me too.
Yeah, we doubled it after, I think, ASTE 2021. After talking to the IGO guys.
we did a podcast with the insurance guy, and he's like, David's talking, and I can see dude's eyes getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and he's like explaining the different.
But you definitely do see the need for a ridiculous amount of insurance. Yeah, I
wonder if other shops know that, or like the mobile guys. Like, what are they insured for? Like,
the mobile guys don't care. They'll just close the door. Like they just turn the phone off.
It's not their problem.
Yeah, they drive off, and all of a sudden, Rick's mobile now became Bob's mobile, and then that's it. Like, and he has a different phone number.
And here's the thing: is that as a professional, right? As a professional facility, the person who then bills the client holds 90% of that liability, no matter what. Yeah. And so even if that mobile guy comes in, the judge is still going to look at you and say, yeah, but you're the professional.
You should have known that guy had no idea.
You're the one who wrote the invoice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know we're talking ADAS and we're talking AAPEX. I mean, think about how valuable this conversation is. Right? Think about the fact that we're sitting here having a conversation that, had we not met at AAPEX a few years back, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. But secondly, think about these conversations that happen at AAPEX because everybody is there. You get a chance to have this conversation with George Lesniak, and he's sitting here saying, hey, listen, I'm seeing this from 30,000 feet, baby. I'm seeing this happen to all these shops. You need to prepare yourself. You need to know what you're talking about. You need to educate yourself. And so I just think it's amazing to have an event like this where you can have those conversations, because it could mean the difference between having a business tomorrow and being in court tomorrow, right? Yeah. Like it can have that big of an impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So what?
And you can go to parties too.
Yeah. You can go to parties. There are some really cool parties out there. And like,
they're not parties, they're business events.
Networking.
Yeah, they're business networking events.
You would think that David would say that because like he wants people to think we're prim and proper. No, he's just worried about the IRS implications. That's the only reason David even cares.
He should have had anything to write off about that party. It was pretty inclusive.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And that is really cool because it means that for lack of a better way to explain it, I think that the vendors that we all work with take that opportunity to spoil their clients.
Yeah. And
so that is so cool to get to go and sit down with the president of an organization like that. You know, Lisa was there. We all got to hang out. Same thing with Auto Shop Solutions. They put on a great event. Shopware puts on a great event. Get to hang out with the CEO of the company and talk and really understand their perspective. There's not many places that you can do that to that degree, where they invite you out and say, hey, let's go have dinner, right? Let's sit down and talk. And there's meeting rooms, the whole 9 yards. And so I talk to a lot of people who they say, I don't like this about this. Well, if you told anybody, well, they wouldn't listen anyway. Nah, man, at AAPEX, they're there to listen. Right. They are there for that specific reason. So if you've got beef with something, if you've got something you don't like with a particular vendor you're working with, chances are they're there. And this is a great opportunity to sit down and talk with them and help them improve their product. Right. I think we fool ourselves into thinking they don't want to know anything about the product. They don't want to hear about the things they're not doing well. Nah, they are absolutely interested, because if you've got that pain, someone else has that pain too. Mm-hmm. And so for you to be able to share it with them, it's just they don't have a good vehicle to filter that out. If you're going to invest in yourself enough to go to AAPEX, boys, they're going to listen to you. Right? They know that you are part of the industry and part of the group that's trying to make things better if you're there. So I think they're there to listen for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, yeah, they have to know that when they go places, that's what they're going to, and they're there. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
A lot of transparency.
Absolutely. What do you hope?
Are you going to be like part of the whole transition to the next female shop owner of the year? Do you help choose the next one?
Oh,
are you part of the committee?
We did do that. Yes.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So are you that person doesn't know, or does that person know?
I don't think so yet.
Really?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
I also got to help with. Well, can I talk about that?
Yeah.
There's another award that I got to help also choose.
Nice.
Really? Mm-hmm.
Is that so? If you win like that, they kind of put you into the committee. Is that how that works?
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. So what were some of the in making that decision, what were you looking at?
Obviously, just the actual work that they're putting in versus, oh boy, I think I have to be careful.
Keep it ambiguous. Keep it ambiguous.
Yeah. So yeah, what their actual role is, like what they're doing within the shop and for the shop and the community, and for women in auto care, it's the Women in Auto Care Award. So I do look to see their activities there, or are they supporting the industry in other ways than running their shop or being involved in running their shop.
That's cool.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
There's a lot of them.
I
think there's a lot of, I'm going to say this just because I have the podium just for a second. I think there's a lot of women who are in the shop, doing a lot at the shops, that don't give themselves enough credit.
Yeah.
And I think they need to stand up. And I think they need to I'm not saying be cocky, but they need to recognize their role and their value that they have, and be able to, whether they showcase that or whether they, because I know that there were not anywhere near as many nominations this past year. And I don't know if that's because they're just not out there, or I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. But
I think they're out there. And my wife worked in the shop for a little bit. And she, now she does all the bookkeeping on top of homeschooling and everything else. And I mean, that in itself is a full-time job. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
But, I will never forget, and I've told this story before. We had a gentleman come in, and he demanded that he talk to me. He didn't want to talk to a woman. Mm-hmm. And he basically told my wife that her place was in the kitchen and that she better just go ahead and get out of the shop. And so I carried him out of the front door and set him back on the porch and said, "Here's your keys. Thanks. Goodbye." Right? Yeah. Don't ever come back.
You're not welcome here, yeah.
And it wasn't at that point that I realized. I had realized it years before, but she was such an instrumental part in all the decisions we made. And she was handling a lot of the things. And if she said yes or no, that's just the answer, right? Like that. I didn't ever look at it like she was different than me. She was and to this day is a vital part of this operation and organization. Mm-hmm. And so she makes everything go round. And even though these people at the shop don't see her anymore, she's still a big part of, did that vendor get paid? Did the employees get their paycheck? Did all of these things happen that make the shop what it is today? I could not do it all without her, right? It'd be impossible. As a matter of fact, today is her birthday. So,
happy birthday.
Of course, I'll make sure I tell her. She doesn't watch our stuff. She finds it very boring.
why do you think that is? Why don't you? Because I see that as well. I see women that are instrumental to the success of the business. Yeah. They're in there every single day. They're making key decisions that are a lot of times more business oriented. They're more managerial in nature.
Correct.
They're directing the pathway for the business, and dictating the future for the business. And
right.
the husband or the man in the situation is doing, like technician work. And but for whatever reason, that person's seen as the leader in the business when that may not be the case, and sometimes you don't see them make that step or step forward and say, no, this is pretty much what I'm doing here. Like, this is my role here. Well, why do you think that step hasn't been made? Is it a fear of what happened with Lucas's wife, or that is actually happening more often than we think in 2022? Or why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it is still happening, and I think it's a lot of just bias, like, bias that probably don't even know whether it's our own for ourselves, right? And just having the confidence that it takes to step up and speak or whatever it may be. But then you also do have a lot of people having to overcome those types of stereotypes. I'm helping a girl in California. She's just working into her family business, and she was talking about service advising and about how she wasn't able to do they were just having her do like tires and oil changes. But if something needed tie rod ends or ball joints or whatever, they were taking it away from her, even though she had the relationship and somebody else was writing it. And I said, why is that happening? Like, why can't you do that? She's like, well, I just haven't learned about it. I'm like, well, you can learn about it. You're a very smart person. So she went back to her dad and brother and said, like, I want to do it. And the next time I talked to her, she had gotten a couple $1 an hour raise, and they were like so happy, that she was able to like step into that. And I'm super proud of her too. But like, why did somebody think she couldn't do that?
Right. And maybe it was her, and in a lot of ways, I've talked about this with my wife, and it was that at first she didn't feel like she could do it.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
It was confidence. It was a personal decision. And I've got a good friend, Candace and Jesse, Waukene, Kansas, right? Is that, and they just changed the name of the shop. I can't remember the name of the shop, but they're in Waukene, Kansas. And man, Jesse says, look, I don't want to run the business. I want to work on cars. Just let me fix cars. Just let me do what I want to do. And she took the business and ran with it, and she's made the business what it is today, right? And I'm not saying Jesse didn't help. I'm just saying that if it wasn't for Candace's drive and for her perspective and ability to work through some of those things that the business was up against, and that perseverance that she has, the business wouldn't be there today. Jesse would have been like, you know what, screw this, I'm going to go get a job somewhere. And so I've noticed, Jen Reinflesh, right? Candace, Megan Bach, right? Like there's a whole list of female shop owners that I know that they have an eye for detail that we don't, right? We come into the shop and a lot of guys, they care about how it looks, but I've got other things on my plate. And there feels like there's these much bigger things, and they feel very overwhelming. I got to deal with these things. Whereas my wife doesn't do that. She comes into the shop and she's like, this is a mess. The trash can needs to be picked up. You need to do this. You need to do this. And you need to do this. And no matter how overwhelmed she gets, she still sees those things. And there was a post in ASOG just the other day talking about that. And the post was the guy saying, my son came to the shop and he's like, Dad, I can't believe how nasty the shop is. And he said, I'm so burnt out that I just come in and follow the motions.
Yeah.
And to her, like to my wife, for instance, it's not just, that is following the motions. This has to be taken care of. This is part of it.
And so
she's, exactly. And so she sees it in a very systemic way that this is what we do. Whereas the only thing I see that I do is I fix cars. Right. And I'm learning more of that, but she naturally has that ability and I do not. And so I think that that's something that's often overlooked. And David, I think a lot of that is why you see women shop owners or the wife of a shop owner who's in there really making the business the next level because she has a different perspective than the man does.
We had our open house, our big party, grand opening at Topel Fest. And I was so glad. Dan was standing behind me talking to somebody else, and a guy walked up to me and said, "Boy, I sure hope you get one hell of a kitchen now that he got his shop." And Dan, like, all of our eyes just got huge because obviously, like, he had no idea.
Right.
And Dan looked at him and he goes, "Actually, this is her shop."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it was just, it kind of plays into the answer to David's question, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, why don't I just, like, go hang out in the kitchen? You know, like, no,
Yeah.
that's not, yeah. So, yeah, it's,
it doesn't make any sense. Like, women have the majority of the purchasing power in the United States right now. Something like 65% of financial decisions of the household are made by the woman in the household. Yeah. Like, it doesn't make any sense why you wouldn't, if you've got your wife or a significant other and she's female working in the business, like, why wouldn't you put her at the forefront of the business and take a step back? Like, that just appeals to the person that is most likely making the financial decisions for how that vehicle is going to be paid for. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Well, and they, across the board, right? Like, across the board, I think that we talk about dispatching to strengths in a repair shop, right? We're talking about where we're sending that technician next. Well, is that something he's good at? And I think that we need to recognize those skill sets, especially if we're a couple, right? If it's a husband-wife type of scenario in the shop, we need to recognize where the strengths are. Mm-hmm. We don't have to kill ourselves to make the shop successful. We just have to work where we're best to work.
Right.
And so I have found areas that my wife does a really good job in the shop, and that's just her natural ability, and she knows what I'm good at naturally, and it just works. Yeah. And so...
And it might even be vice versa. I mean, maybe she is a technician. Like, maybe she is the one who does that. And, Amy, Nat, I think there's a list of women too that, kind of make those assumptions. I'll tell you too, and I don't get too caught up in it, honestly, especially the word guys. Like, I can say to my girlfriends, "Hey guys, let's go do something," right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of sexist thought within the industry where you'll be talking to somebody and, like, we'll tell your guys, that whatever it might be, or the guys in the shop, or I want to talk to the man in charge. Like, those are all terms that I hear, and I probably am overly sensitive. Like, I don't think that people really mean, like, oh yeah, that can't be a woman and it has to be a guy. But I think we need to be a little bit more inclusive about saying, like, using words like team or, they or whatever.
In the South, that's y'all.
Y'all.
Hey,
right?
y'all.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I didn't ever have to worry about it because it's everybody.
Just everybody.
I don't care who does it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But
I've heard of guys not hiring women because they were worried about the people in the shop gagaing over them or whatever.
Yeah, dude.
Like, man, that just can't exist.
I mean, and there was a whole post in ASOG about that. There was a whole post in ASOG of somebody bringing that up.
It was so idiotic.
Right. I mean,
so
like,
stupid.
You're going to let that happen in your shop? Come on. I mean, seriously?
Well, why even have that fear? It's like...
Right. It's insanity.
Do you not interact with other women, like, outside of work? Like, I get you're in the same area, the same space for 8 to 10 hours, but at the same time, like, it's a business. It's professional. Like, don't bring them in with the assumption of, like, there's going to be hooking up or something going on inappropriate. Like, if the shop is professional, it's a professional environment. It doesn't matter who you put in there at the end of the day. It's the best person for the job.
Worry about
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
The fact you even had to worry about it.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
Yeah, I do say that too. Like, it's amazing to be female shop owner of the year, but it's easy to rise when you're in the minority. And I do long for the day that there doesn't have to be women in auto care anymore. But there does right now, so it definitely still exists.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, sounds good. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you at AAPEX.
I look forward to seeing you. Yes. We'll have to find a party that we won't get kicked out of. David's not coming.
No. My wife's going out of town. Somebody's got to watch the kids.
I told him
Bring
just
your
leave
kids
them.
to Vegas.
Oh, there you go. That would be good.
No. Vegas is gross.
Vegas is gross. Oh, man. Well, that stinks. Well,
I'm
we'll
bringing
have to,
Terry with me, but there's a lot of cool, fun people we'll get everybody together and talk to, and I can't wait to see you there, man.
All right.
Sounds great. We'll have to FaceTime David.
That's it. We'll FaceTime David. We'll record a podcast.
You better
We'll get him
answer our
on
call.
the podcast remotely.
Very cool.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, you guys.
Thanks.